Just the way he walked, talked, and acted. Everybody wanted to be like Michael because of how he carried himself.
He was an ex-captain in the Colombo crime family in New York back in like the 80s.
Real life former mafia boss.
Michael Franzese, the biggest money earners the mob had seen since Al Capone.
That life really is damaging. Like my father's sister and brother, like where they're at now, and one of my aunts passed away very young. I feel like it glamorizes a life because it's so cool to be a gangster, but it really, the family and the kids, like that's who pays the price.
Welcome to the Real Storytellers podcast. I'm your host, Nikki, and I have two ladies with me today. And you've seen their dad, Michael Franzese, share his powerful testimony on his own YouTube channel. But today we are hearing from the daughters behind the story. We have Miquelle and Amanda Franzese, and they are the voices behind their new podcast, Girl Bye, where they talk about life, family, faith, and everything in between. They're funny, they're unfiltered, and they're very real about today's issues, and they tell it like it is, what it was really like growing up Franzese. So welcome.
Thank you.
Wow, I love that introduction. We need to steal that from you. Thank you.
My dad is actually the one who got me into your father's YouTube channel, and because I grew up with all the mob movies. My dad is just fascinated with the whole mob life. I mean, I'm talking Godfather, Casino, Goodfellas, Godfather 1, 2, and 3. I grew up on all those movies. So when my dad was like, oh, you got to check out his YouTube channel. So I went to your dad's YouTube channel, and I've been following him for a minute, and I watch a lot of his stuff. But then when you guys came out, it just gave like a fresh perspective. And one day I really want to hear your mom's stories because I know she has them.
That's our biggest comment. Everybody's like, get Cam on.
Yes. What inspired you two to finally start your own podcast?
It's actually Mom's idea.
Honestly, we've even talked about that. Like even when I think we brought it up on our first podcast, we're like, well, why? We don't even know why exactly we decided, but it just like one day we've been talking about it and then we're like, let's do it. And then we actually did it. I feel like we talk about things a lot in our family and then we just kind of like let them go. And
Nice.
Amanda was like actually really like kind of spearheading it, which helped me be motivated because sometimes I get so busy. I'm like, I don't have time for that. And she's so busy, but she, I think, was like motivated just to do something different. And I think being able to like tell our side of it, because we did an episode with my dad, like all the girls years ago, and it got really good feedback. And we were all kind of nervous then to be on camera. But I think now that we're older and we're a little bit more confident, or we are more confident, and honestly, we were like, this could be really fun. And it allows us to like spend time together, which we don't always get to do because we're busy.
Yes, definitely. And so without your dad, the first episode, was it a little like scary? Right?
They scrapped the first episode that we did. They were like, no, you need to start again. I think we were just nervous. We're not big social media people. I don't really post much of anything. I know you're kind of limited to like your business and fitness stuff. So, I mean, so it was bad enough where my dad was like, that's not going to
redo. Yeah, they were like, that one's out.
We were like, what? We thought we killed it. And he was like, no.
I know. We couldn't even remember. I think we blacked out. Yeah. We were like, we don't even know what we talked about. But I remember sitting there being like, we were like, okay, so what do we do? How do we start this? And we like laughed a lot in the beginning. And then we're like, okay, ready? It was just funny. But like, honestly, after a little bit of coaching from my dad, which he gave us an email with all these notes and literally. And then he took us to dinner and he's like, all right, guys. And I'm like, Dad, why didn't you do this before? I think he was like out of town or he wasn't there. So that was super helpful. And ever since then, we were like, okay, we got it.
What's the one thing that people just get wrong about your family? See trolls like commenting, like getting something totally wrong. What's the biggest misconception do you feel like when they're discussing either your father or just your family in general?
I don't know. My dad definitely gets some rough comments, but I think it is like the trolling. I think people have a right to their opinion. So some people like everything that he's done in the past is not something that he can fix or change, but he's done, and I don't think he makes it seem like he's perfect. He's very open and honest, but he's come a long way, and he's definitely not the man that he was 100 years ago, not 100 years ago, but I don't know. What do you think, Mick? The biggest misconception?
I think the biggest, gosh, I just think, like everything is glamorized on social media and YouTube and such. And especially if you follow my little sister, you kind of get a different perspective of what family life is really like, and not in a bad way. She's young. She likes to post, they travel a lot and it looks really glamorous. And a lot of my friends will be
That's
like,
true.
how come you don't have the same life? Or like, and it is, again, like it's not as glamorous as it seems. They do have a, amazing life. But I think everyone, one, thinks we're all super close, which we are, but we all have like our own lives, and we don't see each other, spend as much time with each other as I think people like might think we do, because we do try to do every Sunday. But I think that would be it, that like the glamorous life of, now we live in Newport Beach and my dad travels and he does all these things, and there's a lot of reality to our life that I think people don't see, which you don't really want.
That kind of plays into like the negative trolling that he gets. Like, I think people are like, Michael, you're doing this, you're doing that, you're spending money, you're going on all these trips. And a lot of that is for business. So it's like work stuff, but
work related.
He works really hard. He's home a lot. He's consumed with his kids. Well, he has older kids in New York, which is a different story. I don't like to speak for them because they have a totally different experience, but he is very present around and he's always there and helpful. So maybe they don't see that side to him.
Yeah, I could see that too. Do you feel like it's changed since your father has been more outspoken about political issues?
Oh, he's always been like that.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, just now that he has a big platform, I think more people are hearing about it. But he's been saying this to us for forever.
A long time. Yeah.
We were young and we didn't care.
Yeah. So are you and Miquelle more closer because y'all are closer in age? Or
He struggled.
As we go through our waves, it's like I'm the older sister, which I think also is a misconception that they get between us, because I don't know if because she was married and had kids and all that, and I was kind of like slower start to those kind of things in life. But we've just both been in very different places in our adult life. Like, she got married younger, which was like kind of what I wanted to, but I was like kind of just like lost trying to just work. I worked for my dad for a little bit, and then I was like, I need to not do that anymore, and was kind of just doing my own thing, wasn't coming around as much with the family. She had kids. I was like wanting to have fun and like go out and be with friends, and I had a lot of friends, and I just feel like our lives are now finally starting to like line up a little bit and
like intertwine a little bit more.
Yeah, we're like kind of more on the same page, even though I don't have kids and stuff, and I'm trying to have kids. And I just feel like we're also like more, well, at least me, like I'm just more self-aware and real now, that like we can kind of connect, and we've just been able to talk to each other better. So I feel like we're definitely getting closer. And we were when we were younger. It's like, I don't know. We're so close in age. We're 13 months apart. That sometimes
really? Oh, wow.
Sometimes that could be tough.
So how many of siblings do you have with your mom and your dad?
There's 4 of us. Yeah.
4? Okay. Because I've seen a podcast, I know, with you two, and then I believe it was with your little sister, Jules, right?
Yeah. He's the baby. And then we have a brother in between. He's 36.
Oh,
Michael.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then
is he ever going to get on?
Oh, he might be the toughest one, actually.
Really?
He's so anti. Yeah. He does not want to be in front of the camera. Whenever there was like talks of a reality show, he was like, absolutely not.
He's really fun and goofy. He's just like,
he is so
he's
fun.
very different.
Yeah.
He doesn't.
Maybe one day.
We'll see.
So growing up, Franzese. So for those who don't know, which I'll give a quick intro, pre-recorded about who your dad is. But for those who don't know, who wants to give a quick synopsis of who he is?
Why don't you do that one? Yeah. I feel like you remember so much more. I always like.
Basically, he was an ex-captain in the Colombo crime family in New York back in like the 80s, probably like late 70s, early 80s. Yeah, so he was in that life. He got in that life to help his father out. He was originally going to go to medical school at Hofstra, and his dad got in trouble, and he wanted to help him out. So he talked to his dad, went to see his dad in jail, said, Dad, I want to help you out. They set him up with the life, and the rest is history for the next 20 or so years. So he rose to be a captain. He made a lot of money, and then he got caught just like everyone else and went to jail. This was all after he met my mom, though. He met my mom, who kind of started changing the trajectory of his life, and he really wanted to marry her and realized he couldn't have her and be in the life. So that's kind of what started to make his exit. And yeah, I mean, he went to jail for, I think, a total of 9 years when we were younger, growing up. And him coming out was an experience for everyone.
So what was it like growing up with your father, having that public image? Did you have friends who knew who he was, or did you just, it was just like normal life, or nobody really asked questions?
I think when we were younger, nobody knew, especially in California. It's not the same. I think our older siblings and our older brother, especially John, because he lives out here, he has a lot more memories of more of the crime and the memories with his grandpa Sonny, because they did a lot of things together. They spent time together, like certain restaurants he wouldn't go to, and like their names were in the streets. But in California, it wasn't really like that. And we didn't experience anything till we were older. So I would say maybe in our 20s, now that he started going on and talking about himself, then people would be like, are you the Franzese? Are you Michael Franzese? So it didn't happen till later.
I think maybe a little bit in high school, like people, like the guys started getting wind. Like the girls could care less, but like there were a few guy friends I remember that were like, no. And then when my brother did come out, I think I was like a sophomore or junior. They all knew him. He looks very much like a New Yorker. And I remember I called him one time when my boyfriend was hurting my feelings, and he scared them. And I think people were like, wait, is this like the mob side of the life? Because like my dad was like the nicest guy. Like he seems, his bark is bigger than his bite. And I feel like mostly it was very normal, other than what we experienced in the household with the whole thing. But outside of it was pretty normal.
Because your father was in prison. Were you guys open with that, as far as like with other like friends of yours, or did you just say, oh, he's just on a business trip? Or were you guys ashamed in a sense, or were y'all just accepting that that's just what life was, because that's all you knew at that time?
Yeah, we
were so young, so I feel
we did
like
say business trip for a while.
when he
I think
was
friends would be like, well, where's your dad? And we'd be like, he's gone. Or like, they would ask again, because, kids would just say the craziest stuff. But I don't think we said that he was in jail when he was in jail. But some of the parents knew. I think it was hard to keep that a secret. But afterwards, I was never ashamed. I remember people would say, like, oh, you didn't have your dad? But we were like, we did have a dad. Like, we saw him most weekends. It wasn't the same. And I don't think we realized that we didn't have a man in the house until we were older, because those early years are important. But I was embarrassed. I think as I got older, I kind of kept it more on the hush. Do you remember that?
Yeah, no, I feel like I do remember friends always, I mean, we were so young. He came home when I was 9, so it was, those really young years. I do remember friends being like, where's your dad? Where's your dad? How come your dad's never here? And we said business trip. And I don't ever remember having conversations about, yeah, we're going to visit my dad in jail this weekend. And people being like, your dad's in jail? Like, that wasn't a thing. And I don't know if it's because we couldn't fully like wrap our heads around it, or our mom kind of just did a really good job of saying, this is not what the normal situation is, but we're going to see your dad every weekend. And I don't know. I don't remember that.
I think back in the day too, we didn't you didn't really air your dirty laundry out as much as kids now.
Yeah,
no,
like they shared
I don't
the
think
tea,
so.
and you're like, girl, like what the heck? But back then, we just remember when you said we got spanked, we never said anything to anybody. It's just different.
Yeah. And then there was no social media either. So it's not like you aired out your laundry in that way either. So your mom with 4 kids, and do you feel like she shielded y'all a lot from who your dad was? Or did y'all ask questions?
I think we asked questions. Jules didn't come along till later. So it was my dad's home. Yeah. So it was the 3 of us. Do you remember? I don't ever remember asking Mom, what did he do? Maybe we did.
I'm sure we said, like, why is he there? Why can't he come home? but I don't have like vivid memories of that or like having
Mm-hmm.
that conversation. But she did do such a great job of like making it an adventure to go visit my dad. We had like our spots because he's moved around a little bit. We had like a bed and breakfast with the owner, Lori, who used to make us hot chocolate and marshmallows. And then we'd go like, it was kind of, in a little remote area, and our grandpa would take us on little adventures out there. And then here, like, there was one place we went that had like a playground and had our favorite snacks in there. Yeah. And we knew like every time we go, okay, I can't wait to get this burrito, or like just silly stuff. Or we're going to be, there's a Wendy's next to the place we stay, and there's an indoor swimming pool. And I don't know, I just feel like surprisingly, we have like a lot of good memories from that time traveling and visiting my dad. And I'm sure we cried and it was hard when we left, and we were probably a little bit sad, and my mom had to cheer us up in her ways, but she did a really good job. She was she never talked bad about him. She never, said, we're not going to go see your dad this weekend. Like, I feel like if she ever was upset with him or whatever, she didn't like make that a thing where it's like, we're not going to see dad. Like, we were always going to see him. It was very consistent throughout the time that he was gone.
With all the like mob movies and how they glamorize that life. I know one of you mentioned you don't like mob movies. Were you ever curious where you
No.
looked at the history
Very
of
turned
it
off.
or anything?
I've seen those movies. It took me a while to watch Godfather. I just like had this, and it's probably because of not only that, but like listening to his testimony over and over and over again. It's not so much that like it's a trauma response. It's just, I think, and not that he's a huge celebrity, but when you have a celebrity parent, like you don't care that they're in like movies. You don't care that they're famous. Like you just don't care about that stuff. So that's more my feelings towards it. I don't care. I have zero interest. I don't want to look up the history. I'm not a huge Soprano fan. Like some of the language does remind me of the harder times that we experienced when he came home, because that was really the tough. Him acclimating to being out and having kids and having to raise them and coming into our little, tight circle that my mom had kind of made comfortable for us.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I know you have a different opinion or different.
I mean, I like those movies. I've seen Goodfellas and Casino about 100 times each. And I do remember though, the first time I saw Goodfellas and they were in like the bar and they were naming off the people. And I knew, somewhat what my dad was involved in, but we didn't really ask questions. And I remember them saying Mikey Franzese, and I was like, wait, was that like, because he had never said, oh, they mentioned my name in Goodfellas. And I was just watching the movie and I heard it and I was like, wow, is that like Mikey Franzese? That's pretty close to like
who was Sally Balls' brother.
I took care of that thing for you.
Then you had Nikki Eyes.
What's up, guy?
And Mikey Franzese.
That guy, yeah, I want to see him.
And I remember asking, and I kind of like opened my eyes a little bit because that movie is like very violent.
Yes, it is.
I don't know why I really like Ray Liotta, but I don't know why I liked that one so much in Casino, but they're very violent. So it kind of, I think the older I got and the more I started to realize and put like the connection, I was like, whoa, like I don't watch them as much anymore. I don't know if there's a reason for that, but yeah, I never saw The Sopranos. Don't really care to like research it or go back and look at like all the like, oh, was my dad in the newspaper? And like, what do they actually say about him? And like, none of that stuff. And like, we didn't read his book.
More like just a quick serious note. I think, we're maybe an exception to the rule, which makes our family a little bit special, which I don't like to say because I don't know. I'm just try to keep everything humble and in perspective. But that life really is damaging. Like my father's sister and brother, like what they experienced and where they're at now. And one of my aunts passed away very young. And just even in our family, we have siblings that are in New York that we don't spend a lot of time with. And I think maybe that's why I feel like it glamorizes a life because it's so cool to be a gangster. But it really, the family and the kids, like that's who pays the price for decisions that my dad made. Really, so I think that's a little bit hard and why I don't like watching it, because I'm like, it's not really that cool. It is when you're a child or when you're a sibling or a wife, it's a different experience. So maybe you just actually just thought about that. Maybe that's why
different
I don't like
perspective.
watching the movies.
No, that makes total sense because the mob movies glamorize the money, obviously the violence in it, and it glamorizes the leadership, the confidence, it does glamorize it. But what it doesn't show is what it did to the wives, what it did to the children. It doesn't go into detail about any of those things unless it's doing like a biography, which brings me to my next question. But before I get to that, I remember seeing a special, I believe it was on your grandfather, I think on Newsday. And they talked to your grandfather. I think he had just gotten out of jail. He was really old. And then after that, I remember your dad did an episode about that, just kind of like straightening out certain things they got a little wrong. And I remember them asking your grandfather about that life, like what it did to his family. And he even said it tore them apart. And you could tell he felt
What did your time away do to your family, to your wife?
Destroyed them. What could it do to them? It destroyed them.
I remember hearing on one of your episodes that you guys did meet y'all's grandfather, but obviously he was older at this time. Did what you knew about him, his history, did it change the way maybe you looked at him in any kind of way? Just curious.
We didn't really have much of a relationship with him, unfortunately. When we were younger, we did, or fortunately,
one of the two.
We did go to New York like almost every summer for a while, and we would stay with my nanny, and sometimes my grandpa would be there and sometimes he wouldn't. Their relationship was pretty volatile. So I think like just being in there is like either she was screaming at him or something and he could barely hear. And so I think I was more like kind of afraid of him just because like my grandma would get so angry around him. And I was like super shy and timid, and he could barely hear anything I said. So like anytime my dad was like, go sit and talk to your grandpa, I'd be like, but I don't even know that guy. Right. And so we would see him sparingly. We would go to restaurants with him sometimes, and all these guys would be coming up to him and talking to him and shaking his hand. And I don't know, it's just kind of weird. Like I felt like I didn't probably know the stories at the time, but I just knew something was different, and I didn't feel like super comfortable with him. But as he really got older and got sick, things were happening with my dad's sister who passed away, and then my nanny and stuff. I just remember my mom being really upset and saying that my dad had a hard time being real about my grandpa and the life because it was his dad and he just defended him a lot. And I just remember my mom being upset and saying, look at the damage that everything that his decisions and his life have caused to the rest of your family. Mm-hmm. And he didn't take ownership for that for a long time. And I honestly haven't seen that interview. So I might go back and watch that because I've never heard him say anything like that and acknowledge that, because he was always, he's kind of a narcissist. He's like, I don't do anything wrong and your nanny loves me. And I don't know, I think that's probably his defense. And maybe that's truly like what he gained from the life. But it was sad. I mean, he was in jail for half of his life. And then
the second half of his life.
Yeah. And it's like, that's sad even for somebody who made bad decisions like that, but those were consequences of his actions. And unfortunately, the rest of his family had consequences. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And he lived to be 100.
Yeah. And I remember in that episode, I remember your dad saying that he never really comes to terms with saying, he just always said, well, I didn't do the crime. I didn't do the crime. And that your dad was like, well, you may not have done that crime, but look at, you did do all of this and look what it led to. And I remember the lady that was talking to him about everything, she said, and what about your wife? Like, she fought hard to get you out of prison. And he kind of made a joke. Yeah, she was a tough woman. When she passed, yeah, I can imagine the devil probably didn't want her. He kind of made a joke, like played around. And then he said something like, yeah, she was a strong, tough woman, but she was a good woman. Maybe in the end, he did see all the damage.
Yeah.
I don't watch anything my dad does.
Yeah. So neither of you have seen that?
No.
Yeah, I don't. I don't even like to watch our stuff, to be honest.
Yeah, to like go back and watch it. Yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
So are all your boyfriends ever scared to meet your dad growing up?
Boyfriends were, I don't think I had a ton, maybe one. They were scared or a little kind of intimidated, but they still hung around. He wasn't not approachable. It was just, he was welcoming. I remember one of my boyfriends would come to dinner, and as long as, I think he'd rather keep an eye on them and keep them close. But we did have some instances where some of our boyfriends jumped off balconies because they were afraid. John, again, our older brother, I think they were more scared of him because he was like young and like ready to fight everybody, where my dad was calm down, But older, they have the expectation filling my dad's shoes, I would say.
Yeah. Honestly, had a lot of that's rude, dumb boyfriends. I had a lot of silly boyfriends. We're all silly when we're young. So I was silly too. But sometimes I look back and I'm like, dang, I wish my dad was a little bit scarier, a little bit harder on them, because some of them were such clowns. I'm like, they didn't care about hurting my feelings or anything like that. And even like in my 20s, people would be like, oh, is he scared of your dad? I'm like, I wish he was, because maybe he would act like a little bit better, but no. But definitely now that I'm married, that what Amanda said is like that expectation to, live up to all the traveling and the dinners and just, being able to keep the family close and dealing with all the different personalities and being the head of all that is, it's kind of intimidating for someone coming in. But also, I think that's just because we have that as our example. So sometimes I would say things to my mom like, oh, he doesn't do this like dad. And my mom would be like, you can't do that. He's not dad. That's an unfair expectation for you to have. And it was kind of hard to break that, right? Because you're like, well, that's my example. And like, yes, my dad's like does some crazy things and he's not perfect either, but he does a lot of, like, he treats my mom very well and he takes care of us and all the things. So like, gosh, why can't you just be more like dad? And she's like, no, that's unfair. You can't do that.
Yeah, definitely. I could definitely relate to that. My father is so old school. And I actually kind of laughed because I was watching a while back an episode. It was of you two and Joel's, and it made me laugh because I know she had brought up something one time her boyfriend was sick and she was just going to take him some soup or something like that. And your dad was like, that's ridiculous. And it made me laugh so much because my dad is the same exact way. Like he's like, no, a man just needs to get it together. No, he needs to take care of you. Like you don't be doing that for him. My dad's exactly like that.
Like that
He
with
lives at
Jules,
home.
and he's more like that with like her and her guys, because she gets like she was at home and she gets pretty attached. And my dad's like, calm down a little bit. Take some separation, because he's an adult. Like you don't need to take care of him. And she just likes to take care of people. So yeah.
So your dad's past and what your mom's gone through, how has that shaped your relationships now that you're older, you're stepped into your own purpose, you've gotten married, you've been married, like how has that shaped you?
I think my dad is definitely a caretaker in the sense of he's very, I would say, chivalrous. He does provide and he is very good about making sure my mom doesn't have to do much, like put gas in her car. He takes care of a lot of those things. And I think I realized early on for me that what's more important is to have a little bit more say and control in my relationships. So she does have a voice. It's not that he goes out of his way. Like everything he does is to make her happy. But I think she's very shielded from like the mess that kind of sometimes goes on with bills. And sometimes we would have to like move to different houses because, something fell through and he's just trying to provide and he was getting back on his feet. So I think for me, it's really important for me to have control over my finances and the decisions that I make. And so it's made me a little harsh, I would say, and kind of scared to allow somebody to step in and provide. I get very defensive because in one sense I want that, but I don't trust that whoever is providing for me is going to follow through all the time. In my affairs in order, I need to move because something fell through. I manage my expectations. I'm very strict with the budget. So I think that hardened me a little bit. I'm still working on that. It's maybe one of the reasons why my marriage didn't do well, amongst other things, because he is also a clown. But I'm struggling with that now. So we'll see. Stay tuned, I guess. Maybe I'll figure it out in days. Mick?
For me, well, I definitely think that I was affected more by my dad being gone than I realized. And I started to realize that as I got older, maybe just in the last few years. I wasn't the best picker, I guess, when it chose to choosing relationships. And I think essentially I just didn't have a really good relationship with men and kind of just always searching for someone to take care of me. And I think that's why I wanted to get married so young and why I just kind of held on longer to relationships than I should have, because I was afraid to be alone and starting over. I think now I learned a lot from those relationships about who I am, what I don't want, what I need, But I'm still figuring out because I feel like marriage is a lot different than I expected. I've obviously witnessed my mom and dad being married for 40 years now, which is a long time. Well, not the whole 40 years, but they've been married 40 years. But there's things I love about their relationship, and there's things that I take caution from. And, that's what you want. You want to learn. It's not because I feel like they're doing it wrong. Everyone wants things a little bit differently than what their parents did. That's the point, is to grow and learn from their relationships. I think I'm a little more similar to Amanda now in that sense. Before, I was like, if someone would have came in and taken care of me, I would have said, do whatever. I don't need to know anything. Just take care of me, and like be blind to all of that. But now I'm like, I want to know. I want to be involved. I want to be involved in decisions. Like, I work too. I make my own money, that kind of thing. But I do admire the perseverance and the love that my parents have and what they've been able to overcome. And so I feel like I want to try to emulate that, because my husband and I have already had a very tough year. And I look at my parents, I'm like, how did they get through 40 years of this? But you realize you kind of have to, marriage, if you're a Christian, is you're dying to yourself and you're becoming one. And that's really hard for me to do, because I've been essentially on my own. I got married later. So I think for me, it's I've had relationships, but I've been in charge of me, and I've made my own money. I pay for whatever I want. I do all these things on my own. Now I'm married, and I'm like, all right, we got to start making decisions together. And he has a lot of similar tendencies to my dad. And that does kind of freak me out. He does kind of not share with me all the financial stuff until it's not too late, but we're right there, and there's nothing I can say or do. It's already happening. And I'm just like, PTSD. And I'll tell him, I'm like, you can't do this stuff to me. I went through this growing up, and I want, like Amanda said, more security. I'm not so much where I'm like, I need to do, she's a little bit stronger, opinionated in that sense, but I just want to have a partner. And I do have a little bit of, like I said, PTSD from that stuff growing up. But there's good and bad to everything, right? Their relationship is beautiful, and it's ugly, and it's all the things, and they're together for 40 years. So that has to say something.
Yeah. And I could relate to that. My parents been married for over 40 years as well, actually. So that I can totally relate to. You see the good, you see the bad, you see the upside, you see the downs. Because a lot of my friends' parents, they were divorced. I have very few friends even now that their parents stay together. Very few. And that is saying something. And it's so hard, I think, now in the culture that we live in. As a Christian, of course, you two become one, and you want to let the man not necessarily rule over you, because no less value, but both roles are important. But the man is supposed to be the head of the household. But I think now it's just so hard, trusting somebody to lead you, when, especially if you've been led astray before. So it's definitely hard.
It's you want that, but you're kind of scared of it.
Yeah. So, and brings me to my next question. So, with everything going on in the world, how hopeful are you about everything going on, just politically, especially after Charlie Kirk's death? I feel like there was such a shift after that. So much political violence, just taking things out of context.
I think now you can actually say how you feel. You can say that you don't like things. You can say that things aren't working for you, or they don't align with your political views or your religious views. And it's just exhausting. The names, the racist names and all that stuff. I think people are so over that and played out. And I feel that things are going in a positive way, that we're going to be able to have these conversations, even silly things like Trump making jokes. I know the left takes it so crazy, but it's lighten up. Everything is just, it's okay. Little thing, it's oh my God, they did this. It's just it's just not that deep all the time. So I think the way that he acts, and to show that in a way that's not always so serious, and he works hard, he's getting things done. People are speaking out. We have a lot of people coming over to a common sense side, where they're not afraid to say their opinions. And I'm actually excited. I feel even in my own community, I can be like, girl, bye. When they say some ridiculous thing, or I feel better and confident about being myself, sharing my beliefs, standing up for what I believe in, and not even worried about the backlash. I'm so far moved on from that. And I think the country as a whole is. So I think it's been positive. I feel like we can only go up from here.
I could see that.
Yeah. I feel very similar, but just after the whole Charlie Kirk thing, you definitely saw just people like waking up and people speaking out. I have a lot of people on my TikTok and like Christians that were like, I've been silent for so long because you were afraid to share your opinion, especially if you were high profile and you had a lot of followers and your job is to influence and you make money that way. But these people are starting to be like, what are we doing? Like, there's no need for me to be quiet anymore. And the people that showed up for Charlie Kirk's memorial, it was peaceful, it was beautiful. They worshiped for hours. Like every single person that spoke about God. And you've never seen anything like that,
No,
And
yeah, you're right.
he was a special guy and it was devastating, but he like a lot of people up. I think sadly, we didn't want it to happen that way, but that was for whatever reason, God's taking that bad for good now. And I feel the same way. Like I feel less afraid to talk about how I feel because I have a lot of friends that are pretty liberal. And I did lose friends over certain things in the past, friends from high school that would see something I post and be like, I can't believe you would say anything like this. And, so on and so forth. And now it's like, honestly, if that's how people feel, I don't really want them to be my friend or follow me. Like I don't wish them any ill will and they can have their opinions and be fine. But we need to come to a place, like Charlie Kirk said, where we can all speak our minds and disagree and have discussion. And you might teach me something that I don't know and let me teach you something, right? And let's have peaceful conversation. And yeah, sometimes it'll get heated, but no one should be afraid and no one should fear for their life when speaking about how they feel. And I think, like Amanda said, we are just over the rhetoric. Like we're over it. And the whole No Kings thing that happened and Trump's response was like so great. He's like, I'm not a king. I'm not a king.
Like I'm still your president.
Yeah. He's like, not a king, but okay. I hope you guys, and like everyone's like, hope you guys had a nice day in the sun. Like it's silly, right?
I know we're running out of time here, but your show, it blends humor, honesty, healing. So do you ever feel like you're sharing too much?
No, I mean, before we started, I was like, okay, guys, is there any like hard no's? Like, because when you're talking, and it's not live. So if we needed to like edit anything out, but pretty much everyone was like, no, like, I think I'm okay with everything. And obviously we're not trying to be like mean or cruel towards anyone. So just sharing what's real. But no, I feel like nothing has been off limits. And that's how we kind of want to keep it.
The point is not to exploit anybody. So we want to be able to share our truths, but not exploit family members for doing something and making them feel ashamed. So I feel if you approach a situation with respect and you give a clear understanding of, everything in its entirety, and then also allowing maybe people to come on and give their own opinion and their side of the story. So we want to be real. We just don't want to be exploited. We don't want to hurt people's feelings. Same way we wouldn't want to do it on our Instagram. Like I would never want to exploit my kids for something or, so I think if we keep that general respect for everybody in our family, we can probably, I don't think anything would be off limits.
So if your dad's generation represented redemption about his story, his father's story, so what's the message in Girl Bye?
So Girl Bye, actually, it came from my daughter. So she just came home one day and it was like, girl bye. And I was like, oh no, you don't girl bye me. I'll be girl buying you all day long. So then it became a dialogue between whenever we said something silly or she said something ridiculous and I'd be like, girl bye. So that's how it kind of came up. But I think what our intention is, we are obviously going to talk about my dad. It's a big draw. We know people really like it, but I think eventually we want to kind of branch away from that and just talk about just life stuff, hard stuff, good and bad. This is not a social media podcast. We're not talking about housewives all the time, and we'll touch on things like that, but we have a lot of life experience. We've gone through really tough, difficult times. We want to, shed some humor all the time because that's how you get through traumatic stuff. It's just dark humor. We would love, I don't know, eventually we want to guests that kind of either share similar experiences or have gone through hard times. Like I know I've had a cancer diagnosis, being a single mom, Miquelle's been going through a lot with where she's at in her fitness industry and trying to go through IVF and having crazy parents. And there's so much going on. And this is like a time where I feel like we're a little bit more emotionally intelligent, so we can kind of fix the past trauma and maybe do better for our kids, and just maybe talking about it and sharing, laughing and crying, and I don't know, Mick.
Yeah. I mean, all of that. I think it's just humanizing like the trauma and things that we went through, and like showing, that there is another side to it, right? It's like we all have our trauma, and we don't want to sit here and feel sorry for ourselves and what we went through, because there's so much good. And I think we just want to be relatable to people, because sometimes you look at my dad and it's not relatable at all, but like we weren't in the mob and we didn't really experience that. And even more so because we were in California, it was so far removed. So I think just like letting people see that we're just, I don't think they don't think we're normal, but out of our so abnormal childhood, like we're just two sisters and we want to just share.
Very relatable.
Yeah, that's what we want. We want you to feel like you're like in our living room and we're just chatting, and, we want to give hope to people for experiences that we've gone through and been able to come through. And that's pretty much it. I think my dad representing redemption also shows that like out of such, turmoil in his life came like his family, and we all have so many blessings and good things out of it. And yes, that turmoil and that trauma shaped us, but everyone's got it, right? So we don't need to hide it. We can talk about it. And honestly, talking about it is very therapeutic, even just for her and I. Like I feel good after a session. I'm like, oh, I feel lighter. Like that was fun.
Yes, definitely. Well, I really appreciate you girls, being on here. I know you took time out of your day, and I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Have a great day.